Hi again, this is Ralph Boehm, Legislative Upstate, with Representative Rich Lascelles, and we're going to go over some of the stuff that was in HB2. So we're going to start with what happened this week in school, because that's part of what's in the law now. And
It's been a busy week.
and you want to hit the screen. It all started with this. This was a letter sent out by the superintendent to parents and whatnot. Subject line, we simply must do more. The problem is, that's fine, but then the references they hit were completely, pretty much racist. So it was anti-racism resources for white people. So, and the letter itself looks pretty good, except when you go to the anti-racism resources.
I would take issue with the first part, though, Ralph, because one of the first bullets is updating our history curriculum and the content we teach. And that letter and all those
Right there.
attachments was sent out to all the teachers as well as the parents and so forth. So if you're a young teacher and you get this letter from your boss's boss, whatever, the superintendent, that's marching orders.
Right.
So here we are going into the summer. Look at these references and figure out how we're going to update our history curriculum and the courses we teach. Now, do we know if any of that happened? No, we don't.
No.
Do we know that it didn't happen?
No.
No, we do not. So here we go.
Also, too, we changed the law this year on what constitutes an adequate education. And one of the things we took out was social studies and added in civics, history, and geography. So in other words, let's teach history, let's teach civics, let's teach geography. Let's do away with the social studies bit is why did or what did, and that's based on, and I remember when my granddaughter was in, I said that wasn't right when she wrote a report. Yeah, but that's what the teacher wants, so I want to get an A. So that's the problem with quote, quote, social studies. So I think that's what we saw up in Concord. So we changed the adequate education thing. So social studies is gone. Let's teach, when you and I went to school, history. Let's teach geography, and civics is on there. So yeah, hopefully that take a year or so before that curriculum, the DOE gets going on and puts the curriculum. But and civics is back in there because no civics. You ask college kids, what are the three levels of government? I don't know. I mean, who's your senator? I don't know. I mean, who's the vice president?
What's important to note is that in critical race theory, which of course we don't teach, but in critical race theory, all of history is looked at through the prism of race.
Right.
So to give you a quick example of this, Susan B. Anthony. Okay, right. Susan B. Anthony was, for those of you who don't know, was probably the preeminent women's suffrage person. In one of these anti-racism resources, they call Susan B. Anthony a racist. Now, why is that? Well, Susan B. Anthony opposed the 14th Amendment, which gave voting rights to all males, no matter what the race was. So she was a good friend of Frederick Douglass. Well, Frederick Douglass, of course, was pushing the 14th Amendment, as he should. Well, Susan B. Anthony says, why don't we put women in there?
Right.
Okay. Well,
and women, yeah.
Frederick Douglass said, well, white women have their brothers and their fathers and their husbands to look after them. Black women don't have anybody to look after them. So they had a falling out. but Susan B. Anthony would not support the 14th Amendment because of that. And so now she is a racist.
Yeah.
Well, if that's true, how about Frederick Douglass? Was he a sexist? Of course he was.
Yeah.
But all of history has to be taken in the
Right.
context of where it is. I'm a great friend, or a great admirer of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, in today's prism, would be a racist. He used the N-word all the time.
Right.
So I can get all wound up
I
on
know,
this stuff.
and you can't judge the present by what happened in the past.
No,
And
no.
and here's a good one too. That one of the questions they ask on the critical race testing is, what American document is racist? The Declaration of Independence. Martin Luther King praised the Declaration of Independence.
It's interesting in the superintendent's letter that he quotes the great Nelson Mandela. Well, why didn't he quote Martin Luther King?
Right.
Where Martin Luther King said his dream was that his kids would be looked at for the quality of their character, not by the color of their skin. Well, all of this CRT stuff, the color of your skin is up at the top. That's what's most important.
And that's racist.
Of course it is.
I mean, racism is, if you look at any definition, if you say one race is better or one race is worse.
You know, Ralph,
what-
you're 80 years old.
75.
You're 75?
I don't push it.
You look good for 80. but I'm 72. We're too old for this stuff.
I know it.
I get all wound up. I'm going to have to go home and take double my blood pressure medication.
Yeah, I mean it's and then what's even bad, I mean the resources they looked in here, it's different than what was on the list a month ago. I mean, they still have on the list the 1619
Project.
New York Times 1619 project. Come on, that's
Forget 1776.
Right.
Forget that. It's
Right.
1619.
right. When most of the people that came to this country were being persecuted in other countries and came here to get away from that persecution. So, I mean, yes, slavery was involved. Here's a social studies question for those that want to answer it. Why did our ancestors, go to Africa to get slaves when didn't we have a full complement of Native Americans in this country? That maybe, but that's a social study question. Why didn't that happen? I know how it happened, but I'm not gonna say anything. Figure that out. Okay. Anyway.
One thing that's interesting, if you look at these 90 different documents and books and podcasts and everything, is American exceptionalism anywhere
No.
in here?
No.
America has done more for the world, economically, health-wise. We saved Europe from Hitler. We saved the Far East from the Japanese.
Right.
Is any of that in here?
No.
All right.
And-
I understand now that the Holocaust is no longer being taught in some places because of critical race theory.
Right.
Oh.
The thing is, in what country is why most people around the world want to come to? This country.
Well, they're walking 1,000 miles. They're sending their kids.
Right.
It's
And now look what's happening in Cuba. And you don't see too much on the news on it because even Black Lives Matter made a comment about against the people in Cuba and for the government. I mean, come on. So
I
mean,
see a lot of Cuban Americans leaving Little Havana and in Miami and going back to Cuba. No.
No.
But you know why? You know why the government doesn't encourage people from Cuba to come here?
Because they don't vote Democrat.
They're very conservative people.
Right.
They're
I lived in Miami high school, in the early 60s when the refugees were coming in. And I remember they didn't want Fort help. In other words, there were doctors that came over, for example, that had to wait to get their licenses. They were bagging groceries at the supermarket. They weren't going to sit around and collect money from the federal government. They wanted to work, and that's the big difference. And even today, they're very resourceful. They're very conservative, but yeah.
I had an instructor in computer school when I was in the Navy, whose name was Vigilon, and he was an instructor because he had a doctor's degree, but he was Cuban. He didn't have citizenship,
Right.
so the only thing he could do was teach, and it was his accent caused it was very difficult for anybody to understand some of the things that minority and minority, majority and minority, and they both came out the same.
Now here's one of the big problems. I mean, after the thing on Wednesday, I like the way that the school board and they say, hey, we're sorry this started and whatnot, but we're not teaching it. The problem is the teachers union, which our teachers belong to, says teach it.
And they're going to defend teachers that do.
Right. I mean, and so I think what behooves our teachers, if they really want to be, they need to come out and say, we oppose our union, the NEA, and we are not going to teach it. They need to come out in public and say that, because their union that they belong to is pushing this.
The point I'd like to make too is that yes, I'm sure we don't have a course called critical race theory.
Right.
But anybody that knows anything about education today knows that in most cases classes don't use textbooks.
Right, a lot of cases. No.
They don't. So they use Google Docs, they use DVDs, they use YouTube videos, and so forth. So, any of these things, if the superintendent is telling you that these are all good things, well, if you're a young teacher and you have a class that you're giving and it's similar to one of these, poof, we can use that as part of our instruction. And there's nothing to keep them from doing it.
Yeah, and we know over the years, the colleges and whatnot that are teaching the teachers and whatnot have been teaching this.
Unfortunately, including UNH.
Oh, right. I mean, has Lily Tang, who we'll bring up later, and said this is Marxism. It's called How to Divide and Conquer, and that's what's being done. Let's put one group against another group. In this case, the haves and the have-nots, or maybe the have-nots. But I mean, it's not right. I think same with the word white privilege gets thrown out every now and then. I'm sorry, I was on my own since I was 17. Nobody gave me anything other than a job. And speaking about white privilege, doesn't it also go the other way around sometimes? How many white kids couldn't go to the college they wanted because that college had to fill their quotas? And even today, Harvard, for example, is saying no to Asians because they have too many of them qualifying. So, where's the privilege part?
Any time you throw something like this into the mix, the government or the establishment can just mess it up. They mess it up every single time.
Yeah.
When people are allowed to use their God-given talents to advance themselves in any way possible, in a fair way, then that's when society is benefited the most. I get all wound up on this stuff.
I mean, here's the NEA. They call the New Business Item 39, where they are going to, with guidance on implementation from the NEA president and chairs of the Ethnic Minority Affairs Caucuses, They're going to share and publicize through existing channels information already available on CRT and what it is and blah, 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 blah. So in other words, the NEA is pushing this down the line.
And also the American Federation of Teachers.
Right, both unions, but our union is the NEA.
Yes.
And for example, they joined with Black Lives Matter at the school and the Zen Education Product to call for a rally this year on October 14th, George Floyd's birthday, as a National Day of Action. It'd be interesting to see if our school does that.
What's interesting too, anybody that's seen this list, this list of 95 or whatever there is,
Which is different than the list now.
but at the very end of that list, it's very telling. Our school board supposedly vetted this list. Now, sometimes they say they vetted it. Sometimes they said they didn't. But at the very end of the list, it says document compiled by Sarah Sophie Flicker and Alyssa Klein in May of 2020. So all of these things were put together by these two ladies. I think they're from New York and New Jersey, and they were put out. I don't know who did it, but they were put out all over the country. Right. We're not the only school board, the only superintendent that did this. No. All of these things were put out, so it was almost like a conspiracy. And then our superintendent told me personally that, well, we had to put this out because if we didn't, it'd make us look bad. So I don't know if
backfired on them.
I don't know if people have ever heard the term virtue signaling. So virtue signaling is when you say, "Whoa, look at me! Look how virtuous I am."
Oh, right.
Okay, because I have done this. Well, I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't buy it.
The thing is, our neighboring city up that we border, Manchester, is going along with this. I mean, also the NEA, say for example, if our union, our teachers say, well, no, we don't want to belong to the NEA anymore, the NEA just come out with really strong rules on the NEA boss exit the local unions who want to leave. So they're making it hard. So for example, well, we want to be our own. They make it very difficult for somebody to do that. And so they're pushing this. And here is a list of New Hampshire teachers that say they're willing to go to jail for teaching CRT. Well, there's nothing in the law about going to jail. What's in the law is you're going to lose your teacher credentials. Then you can't teach.
How many people are on this list?
Okay, let's go down the list.
There's nobody from Litchfield, is there?
No, but here we go. Allsted, New Hampshire, Andover, New Hampshire. Let's just go someplace close. Luckily, nobody in Hudson. Manchester. Here we go. Candace Moulton. And remember, Candace Moulton ran against Mark McLean and Rick Barry for District 44 seat, which is the floterial for Litchfield and Manchester. And she's saying, I'm going to teach it, and I don't care if you try to send me to jail. Yeah.
Well, if anybody saw Mark and Ross the other night, and that's available on YouTube of the school board meeting, I was so proud of Mark and Ross. Right. The way they handled themselves was perfect, and I'm just very proud of them. And they have the people of Litchfield and Manchester in their mind. They answer to them, and they're good guys.
Yeah, hopefully in Manchester come November they have an election, and maybe they'll change the mayor. Also Nashua, Joshua Merrill, Kate Susie, Paul Menard. I mean, so here's the list of all these teachers that say Pelham, Barbara Tobin. So I mean, this is, luckily there's nothing in Londonderry or Merrimack, but
well, you gotta think that these teachers are hardcore.
Oh yes,
they are hardcore. So nothing against them. They may be great teachers, but they're hardcore.
Yeah. So the thing is, you can readily find that. So, the thing is, yeah, I mean, we don't care what the law is. The dickens with the law, we're going to do what we want. Now, here's something interesting. Here's a Facebook you can go to. New Hampshire Asian American Coalition. Okay, this is run by a woman called Lily Tang Williams. But if you just look Lily Tang, she lived in communist China when Mao's Cultural Revolution was going on. She equates this to that. She was there when she was 23 years old. And she, I don't know how I talked, but she got out. And they had a rally about a month ago up in Concord. I was there. And they had like 60 or so different nationalities of people protesting CRT. All races, including blacks, including Asians, including everything else. There's a woman running for Attorney General in New York State was up there speaking, and she was Afro-American. So, I mean, it's not, hey, this is wrong, and a lot of people see it's wrong. But for some reason, it's the whole thing of let's divide the country and cause chaos and see what happens. I mean, but this is a good Facebook to look at. Let me see if I can scroll down where pictures of the. Nobody is born racist. It's taught. Stop teaching it.
I am really anxious to bring Lily Tang to Litchfield. I've heard that she is a wonderful speaker. She has a compelling personal story, and I'm really anxious. I talked with her on the phone 2 or 3 times, and I was hoping to get her here actually this week, but she, I think she could be a real inspiration for everybody to learn from the trials that she went through under communist Chinese control. And you know, we talk about immigrants, and I was relating before we got started about going to Sam's Club or to BJ's, and you see these folks driving around with carts, and they're immigrants. You get all different colors, all different nationalities, but you know those folks have a little corner store. They're buying cases of stuff. They're living the American dream. You don't see that in here. No. The American dream is not mentioned anywhere, and that's what made this country great.
Here's a picture on that Facebook of the rally we had up in Concord. I mean, education, not indoctrination. Like I said, there was a bunch of people there, speakers. I was there, but that's something you should really look at.
Well, when it gets right down to it, we're all immigrants to this country.
Right.
It's just that some of us have been around longer than others. But I'll tell you, good immigration to the country makes the country better, all right? And it brings in new blood, and I think it's great when we have people that come in. Long ago, we had, when Errol was running the farm back at my house, he had Cambodians that worked there, and they were great workers. As they got here longer, they sort of earned their way out of working on the farm because it was backbreaking work, and they became more prosperous, and they went on to do other things. All right.
Also, too, sometime next month in August, they have a seminar for all the teachers to teach them what's going on for the following year. I remember when I was on the school board, I tried to attend that to find out what's going on. And from Wednesday, it didn't look like anybody when the school board was there, but the school board members need to attend the teachers' briefings to go, to find out what the teachers are being told. And you were there last year, weren't you?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Ralph.
No, they have the thing at the beginning of the school year.
Oh, well, yes, at the, for the staff development.
Right, staff development, I couldn't remember what it's called, yeah.
At the beginning of the year,
Right,
yes, I
yeah.
was. And that got me into trouble the other night because everybody was looking for examples. Give me an example, give me an example. I gave him an example, and what did the superintendent say? Allegedly.
You were there, how could it be allegedly? Yeah.
Stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. I think allegedly might come up later in the month or sometime. We'll see.
Yeah, the thing is, the teachers need to keep politics out of the classroom. There are laws about that, and I know we have a retained bill in education to further look at that, and we might strengthen that out. But BLM, defund the police, that's all propaganda, that's all politics. And defund the police, I was always taught people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. So, for example, every occupation, there are bad people. Yes, there are bad people in the police. There are bad teachers. How many kids' lives has been ruined by a pedophile teacher? But, hey, so people in glass houses, be careful what you teach. Okay? The SAT, for example, a couple of years ago, was trying to fix it so people from, say, Boston area they'd add to the scores to give them a higher score because of their diversity. Wait a minute, what happened to earning it? And that would hurt. That was frowned upon. It was eventually changed. They did away with it because everybody in New Hampshire would be against it. I mean, they get lower SAT scores than somebody from Boston, even though they might have really been higher SAT scores. Also, teachers do not have freedom of speech in the classrooms. U.S. Supreme Court, 2006. No public employee has freedom of speech on their job. So teachers might say it's freedom of speech. No, you don't have. You teach what the curriculum says you teach. That's it. I mean, so none of this freedom, you keep hearing that. It's freedom of speech. No, it's not freedom of speech. Teachers can't teach what they want. They teach what they're told to teach. I mean, for example, a math teacher can't teach history. I mean, that's out of their thing. Also, we know that parents are afraid to speak. But we ask that if any parent that has concerns as to what has been told to their children, and you don't want to, and you're afraid to go to the school, let Rich or I know. We will pass it on and keep your privacy. And if you look on the screen there's both mine and Rich's email. So let us know if any of this is happening. And even, especially in the high school area, all your kids probably have phones, and if that's happening, have them press the record button. I mean,
I don't know whether
that's illegal, but
yeah, I don't know if I'd have them do that.
But the thing is, if something's going on, let Rich and I know. I mean, I know some parents are afraid to do that. So I think we're pretty much running out of time. Anyone to say, Rich?
Nope. I do want to say to the people of Litchfield that are watching this, thank you very much for all the support you've given Ralph and I and the rest of the people who are making sacrifices to do what we feel is the right thing. And I just want to thank everybody who's out there. I mean, we could ride off into the sunset. We don't need this stuff, but it's so important. And I just want to thank the people that have shown us so much love. Now we've gotten some arrows, but that's fine. But we we've had a tremendous amount of support. A lot of people don't voice it publicly. You see things on Facebook, but believe me, there's a lot of closet positive patriots out there. And it doesn't show up on the WhatsApp page, but they're out there and they support us, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, okay, future shows coming up. The governor's been signing some bills, so we'll have another show in another couple of weeks with Erica, and we'll go over some of the bills that have been signed off. Also, I'm having Kate Baker come on. She's the one that runs the Education Freedom Accounting, so go over that law sometime in August, end of August probably, on how to go about doing that. So with that, thank you.